Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the life of one of history's most pivotal figures, and we're sticking to the source material to see how it all unfolded.
So how does an orphan from Mecca become one of the most influential people in all of history? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. His incredible journey from a merchant to the founder of a world religion, all based on the historical accounts.
All right, to really get this, we have to transport ourselves back to 6th century Arabia. Picture this, a world dominated by powerful, competing tribes, crisscrossed by bustling trade routes. And at the heart of it all is the city of Mecca, the center of a very old, very ingrained polytheistic tradition. Okay, let's just quickly anchor ourselves with a timeline. He's born around 570 CE, and for a while, his life is pretty uneventful. But then, boom, around age 40, he has his first revelation. From there, everything just accelerates. You've got this major migration in 622, and then he dies just 10 years later. I mean, think about that. Such a profound, world-changing transformation in a remarkably short time. So, Muhammad's early life, it really wasn't easy. It was marked by loss, actually. He was born into the Banu Hashim clan. They were respected for sure, but not exactly rolling in it. And then, by the time he's 6, he's an orphan. He's raised first by his grandfather, then his uncle. He eventually finds his place in the world of the caravan trade, and this is where he really makes a name for himself. He builds his reputation for being so honest that people start calling him Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy one. And that reputation for being fair, it got tested pretty early on. There's this story where they're rebuilding the Kaaba, the sacred shrine in Mecca, and all the clans start arguing about who gets the honor of putting the holy black stone back in its place. It could have gotten ugly, but they choose Muhammad to sort it out. And what he does is pretty clever. He lays down a cloak, puts the stone on it, and has a leader from each clan grab a corner to lift it together. Everyone shares the honor, just like that. A simple, diplomatic move prevents a huge fight. So as he gets older, he starts this practice of spiritual retreat. He'd go off by himself, for nights at a time, to a mountain cave called Hijrah, just outside Mecca, just to pray and think. And it's during one of these retreats, when he's about 40 years old, that his entire life is about to be turned upside down. Yeah, the source material describes this as a totally life-altering and frankly terrifying moment. The angel Gabriel appears, grabs him, and commands him, read. Now, Muhammad couldn't read, he was illiterate, and he tells the angel that. But the angel just repeats the command, this time with this overwhelming force, before revealing the very first verses of what we now know as the Quran. I mean, can you imagine? This is the moment everything changes. His life as a prophet has just begun. Okay, so he starts preaching what was revealed to him. And almost immediately, he runs into some serious opposition. His core message, that there's only one God, was a huge threat to Mecca's whole way of life. I mean, their economy was built on pilgrims coming to worship the many idols in the Kaaba. So for 13 long years, his small band of followers faced all sorts of persecution, social exclusion. They even put his entire clan under a crushing economic boycott. So things are just getting worse and worse in Mecca. The situation becomes completely untenable, especially after both his protective uncle and his wife die. A change had to happen. And this next moment wasn't just about survival. It was a move that would totally reshape the future of this new community. This event is called the Hijrah. And what's fascinating is that our source points out the word itself literally means a severing of kinship ties. Think about how powerful that is. This wasn't just moving to a new town. It was a deliberate break from the old tribal loyalties of Mecca. They were choosing a new community, one bound by faith. This migration in 622 CE is so important that it's actually year 1 on the Islamic calendar. But why Yathrib, of all places? Well, this city, which is about 200 miles north of Mecca, was a mess. It was torn apart by years of bitter feuding between its tribes. Delegations from the city had heard about Muhammad, and they saw in him the same guy who solved the Blackstone dispute, an impartial leader who could finally bring them some unity. So they invited him. They asked him to come lead their community. So he arrives in Yathrib, which is pretty soon renamed Medina, meaning the city. And his role just completely transforms. Think about it. He's no longer just the spiritual leader of a persecuted little group. He is now the political and military head of a brand new, emerging state. And one of the very first things he does is create what we now call the Constitution of Medina. I mean, this was a revolutionary document for its time, according to the source. It basically created a new kind of super tribe, the Ummah. It brought together all these different groups, the migrants from Mecca, the converts in Medina, and even the local Jewish tribes, into one single community, all agreeing to defend each other. And it explicitly guaranteed freedom of religion for everyone.
And this slide right here really drives home the difference. It's night and day. The Meccan years, that was all about persecution, just trying to survive as a minority. But in Medina, his role explodes. He's a statesman, a lawmaker, a general. The whole nature of his leadership, the challenges he's facing, it's a whole new ballgame.
Right, but moving to Medina didn't just solve the problem with Mecca. In fact, things escalated. For the next 8 years, the two cities are basically locked in a state of on-again, off-again war.
The source walks us through a few really key battles. The first one at Badr was this incredible, shocking victory for the Muslims, who were totally outnumbered. It was a huge morale boost. A year later, the Meccans hit back hard at Uhud, and the Muslims took heavy losses. But the really defining fight was the Battle of the Trench. To defend Medina, the Muslims dug this massive trench around the city, a military tactic nobody in Arabia had ever really seen before, and it worked.
But you know what's interesting? The biggest turning point wasn't actually a battle at all. It was a treaty. In 628, Muhammad negotiated the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, a 10-year truce with Mecca. Now, at the time, some of his followers thought the terms were a bad deal, but it turned out to be a brilliant strategic move. It stopped the fighting, and more importantly, it gave Islam the breathing room it needed to grow, and grow it did.
And I mean explosive growth. Just 2 years after that truce, the Meccans' allies break it. And by then, Muhammad is able to gather an army of 10,000 people to march on the very city that had kicked him out. And the conquest itself was almost completely bloodless. He takes back his hometown, and instead of revenge, he declares a general amnesty for all his old enemies. Then, in this hugely symbolic act, he goes into the Kaaba and personally destroys the 360 idols inside, rededicating the shrine to the one God. Just 2 years later, at the time of his death, pretty much the entire Arabian Peninsula was united under his leadership.
So, Muhammad dies in 632. And just think, this is only 2 decades after that first revelation in the cave. In that incredibly short span of time, he laid the groundwork for a new faith and a whole new political reality that would go on to change the course of world history. According to the source material, after making one final pilgrimage to Mecca, he came back to Medina, fell ill with a fever, and passed away in the arms of his wife Aisha. And his death, while he left behind a united Arabia, it also created a huge immediate question. And we should remember what this community he built was all about. It was defined by these major social reforms. The source really emphasizes how his teachings went against the old aristocratic privilege, how he set up an alms tax to take care of the poor, and how he totally redefined what community even meant, making it about shared faith, not just who you were related to.
But the biggest, most immediate question after he died was who's in charge now? He hadn't clearly named a successor, and this power vacuum led to an immediate split. One group of followers backed his closest friend, Abu Bakr. Another group thought it should be his cousin and son-in-law, Ali. And this disagreement, right at the very beginning, is what would eventually grow into the 2 main branches of Islam we know today, Sunni and Shia.
So, let's just step back. From an orphan to a prophet, from a hunted preacher to the leader of Arabia, the transformation in just 2 decades is, well, it's nothing short of astonishing. And it leaves us with this final question to think about. What does a story like this, a 7th century story, really tell us about how a single person and a powerful idea can completely change the world?